This is episode 74 of the Gauntlet Podcast. My name is Jason.
I'm Lowell.
I'm Andrea.
And I'm Rich.
Awesome. Rich, give us an update on Tweaks. I love saying that, by the way. Tweaks.
You can say it one more time because it's a two-shot, and I've done the second shot. You want to hit it one more time?
Tweaks.
All right. We finished up the two-shot for Gauntlet City Limits with Tweaks. Tweaks was a fun little game. Again, 7-page, very OSR-y, rulings, not rules. There's even a pocket mod version of the game that comes with the download. Costs $1. I got more than $1's worth of fun from it. But upon, a second session when we actually started to hit a bit more mechanics rather than a little bit of world building, one of the things I ran into is that there are attributes. You have to set a difficulty, which I suck at because I'm used to PvT. Yeah, Lowell's nodding because he's too nice to say, yeah, Rich.
Yeah, you are. It's so weird in that game, too.
It is because it's tech speak, right? You're a hacker, and so if you want to set a level 1 difficulty, you have to roll 2d4, and if it's a level 2 difficulty, you have to roll 3d4. So,
wait, okay,
yeah. And so you roll against your attribute, right? And because that's kind of the core mechanic, is most of the time you're rolling the set difficulty by the GM number of d4s against your attribute. You would think understanding what those attributes are, having them well defined, would be an important part of the system. Well, in an attempt to be, glib, the attributes are described as brains. How smart you is. And tech is, this attribute represents how good you is with technology. Now, yes, it's a 7-page game, but only spending less than a sentence on the attributes, which is the core aspect of how you resolve things, but spending 3 sentences on falling damage.
Yes.
3 sentences on falling damage. I hit a wall because there's a point like, is this brains or is this tech? Is this brains or is this tech? And we actually broke down. Like, the game stopped as we had to have a discussion to figure out, okay, well, this is called an attribute, but maybe brains is really more like hit points, because build is like hit points in the physical world. And so it just kind of broke us for a little bit.
Rich would go, okay, make a roll for me. And then there'd be this pause, and somebody would go, how many dice? And Rich would go, oh shit, 2 dice. And that went on because it's just not natural to go, okay, now I have to tell you exactly what you have to roll here.
Yeah. It's something you have to kind of get back in the habit of, I guess, if you've been doing PBTA for a while,
yeah.
Right? We get so spoiled.
Yeah, I think I actually look a little bit confused.
Yeah, the not natural. Lowell's just being nice. I mean, it's natural for everyone but me, evidently. I just wanted to also mention big kudos to Fraser, because Fraser Simons, who came in and played with us the second time around, there was a point where, okay, the group has gotten together, and middle part, which is, hey, let's come up with a plan. I'm used to PBTA. I represent the threat, and I'm going to tell you the thing. I'm not going to lay out how you do your mission. And Fraser was great for the limited time frame we have for the game session to say, hey, I think it'd be cool if we take these loose threads and we kind of, here's a plan, and this way we can utilize these guys who are good at this, and these guys are good at this. And what do you guys think? It was a little bit meta, and it was also kind of in character, and it was one of those just enough for everybody to kibitz and go, yeah, man, let's do that thing. And so everybody jumped forward and kind of leapt into what scant bit of plot that I had actually sketched out.
Okay, cool.
And in the end, I found that, like most games, it was a lot stronger when you had a couple people to play off of. When you don't have a whole lot of mechanics, then you can either bring things forth with personality of NPCs or color of the world, or you try to set up situations that are interesting for player characters. And I just found that in the Tweaks game, they had such vibrant characters that was what shined.
Cool. Awesome. I picked it up ever since you talked about it, and I was like, I'm going to sit down and read this. I'm going to square away some time to sit down and read this game. That lasted about half a cup of coffee, and then it seems pretty cool, though. It's definitely worth $1, right? I mean,
yeah, it's worth $1. I'm more interested just talking about stuff from Raw Rum and Monster Publishing. I'm much more interested in getting BMX Mysteries to the table. and that'll probably.
Oh yeah, I didn't know they made that one.
Yep.
Oh, cool.
That'll probably be my December offering for Gauntlet City Limits.
Yeah, I'm excited about that because that's like my favorite movie genre. So that's pretty dope. Cool. Is that Robert Nolan? Roar I'm a Monster?
Roar I'm a Monster is a guy by the name of Charles Fleming.
Oh, okay,
Charlie
Fleming.
Fleming.
Okay,
Sorry.
Charlie Fleming. Robert Nolan did One Percenter, right?
One Percenter is Creepy Doll Studios, which is Robert.
Cool. Is there anything else you want to say about Tweaks?
Big thanks to the group that played with me. I felt like they really ran with the ball and made it a lot of fun.
Sweet. Tweaks. Lol. What is Millennium Blades?
I had been planning to talk about an RPG tonight, but I played this game on Saturday. It's a board game. It's the craziest, most meta game I have ever played. It is huge and insane. It's a board game in which you play CCG, collectible card game players, collecting cards, putting together a deck, and going to tournaments. You literally are doing that. You have a character. They've got, I was this heartless robot. His lack of emotion allowed him to be an awful player at the table. So they've got some color for the roles there. But this thing is huge. You have a big deck of base cards, and then you've got all these booster sets that are themed. They're like 8 or 12 cards, and each of these parodies an existing CCG or a pop culture property like Castlevania or Mouse Guard, or they had 101 Nights to parody Arabian Nights from Magic the Gathering. And there are a ton of these. You only use like a third of them in any game out of the like the 30 some you have. And then there's a bunch of other stuff that is also variable. What player starter decks, what bonus decks, what promotional decks, all these things are there. So it's this brilliant modular game. But the weird thing is you play it in two halves. You first start out with a section where you are building your deck, and you get some cards, and there's a bunch of cards face down on the table, and you have 7 minutes, and you look at your hand, and you look at the cards you just got, and then you start buying cards face down, like you're buying booster decks and opening them up and spending money, and you look, okay, this isn't going to fit, and okay, what am I do with this, and do I sell it? You're doing that in this rush thing for 7 minutes, and then you're done, and then you do that again for another 7 minutes, and you get more cards you're trying to keep track of, and you're trying to build a deck even as you're putting cards down to try and score some points. So you've got all this information and all these things you're supposed to do, and then you're done, and you have to choose your 8 cards plus a deck box and 2 accessories, and then you take your player board and you actually flip it over completely.
What?
Seriously. Okay. And you do a completely different thing, the completely different mechanics now. Now you're playing cards in a CCG tournament to score rank points to see who wins the tournament, and you play those cards that you've chosen, and some of them will bump other people and some of them will score you points, and you're trying to desperately get this crappy deck that you put together to work, and you score points, and then you get points for winning the tournament, and you do that 2 more times. I know it sounds insane, but you do.
I'm having a very hard time following. I'll tell you that right now. Like, I have no idea what's going on.
At the table, it is an absolute brutal, random Ameritrash mess that is going all over the place, and yet there's still some real strategy in it. Like, one of the players was like looking at the different sets of cards and was kind of focusing in on some things and actually built kind of an engine for his tournament deck when he actually got to play and did well. It's a hilarious thing. And of course, it really is about CCG. So there's all these in-jokes related to pop culture properties, and every single card has different images and different references, and you're going along. And I thought that by the 3rd round, that I would be just absolutely tired of it, that I would be done, especially because you've got those 2 rounds of deck building plus a finisher thing in each thing, and then you go to the tournament. But no, because you're always doing something. You're always drafting or picking cards or getting stuff, and everybody's doing it simultaneously. Then you flip to the tournament, and you have to look at each other's cards, and it happens pretty quick. I mean, you can resolve that in maybe 10 minutes, do the tournament.
Okay.
So you are always engaged, and it's hilarious and meta and fun, and a ton of stuff in the box.
I guess my question is, how much of your enjoyment of the game depends on you knowing the sort of like tropes or conventions of CCGs. We should say that's collectible card games for any listeners who are only into the very, very narrow RPG slice of geekdom. Andrea's raising her hand. How important is that part of it, Lowell?
So my niece was there, and she came over and watched us for a while, and she's missed the whole CCG generation thing. She thought it looked interesting. She liked the cards. She liked that they all did different things, and she could try and figure out what different abilities did with things. So I think there is a game there underneath an incredibly rich theming, and I think that she would enjoy playing it. She seemed like she wanted to. I didn't let her, but it looked like that would have been fun. I actually bought a copy, so we'll play here soon. But yeah, I thought it might be a little too niche, but it's really funny.
Yeah. Cool. Is there anything else you want to say about it, Lowell?
I think it's interesting that we've got a game that is so meta, and I was trying to figure out anything else that was that meta about gamers playing games about games, and I can't think of anything off the top of my head.
I'm sure, yeah. I'm sure I've played something like that, but yeah, I'm having a hard time off the top of my head anyway. I'm sure listeners will chime in with their meta picks.
Yes.
Andrea, Ghost Lines. I love Ghost Lines. I think we've covered it pretty well on the show, so maybe just give us the quick overview and then how your stuff went.
When I explain Ghost Lines to people, I basically liken it to a Western, except it's steampunk instead of the Wild West. You still get to fight on the top of trains, but instead of fighting bandits, you are fighting ghosts.
Okay.
Which is really exciting. Unfortunately, we didn't get to do that this session, but we explored the little-known side jobs section of the game.
Right. Little explained side jobs. That's what you meant.
Well, the whole game is little explained.
Nailed it.
That was really cool. It was basically used as a means of getting us to go do things in the city, which both was creepy and also had to do with ghosts and people who made very poor decisions.
Yeah.
My favorite thing about this session, I played this game, oh my gosh, like a year ago with Dr. Tom, and I was reprising my role as my character. And that was a terrible game for my character. She went through some stuff. So I came back, and she's been a little bit of a drunk, and she's changed roles, and so she's a little darker, because Andrea likes her darkness. So she comes in, and one of the other players in this game had chosen the same badge as an NPC character from my previous game, which obviously means that character was dead, and the GM was kind enough to point this out. So immediately I was like, how did you get that badge? What happened to Brogan? What's going on? Who do you think you are? So that was really fun. It was a really great way of actually kind of bringing up the tension and stirring up the drama within the party, which I don't think is often hit on in Ghost Lines because, I mean, it's external threats, right? You're dealing with ghosties.
Right, yeah.
So it was a really cool decision on the part of the GM. I'm not sucking up at all.
Is the GM present? Rich, was that the one you ran?
Yes.
Well, so Rich, what spurred you to not do the train stuff and do the city stuff instead?
I'll be honest with you. I had so much fun when we did the side jobs during the Saturday morning cartoons run of Ghost Lines that you ran earlier this year.
Oh, yeah.
I just said, you know what? I'm going to have an entire session where we just do side jobs because I think that'll be awesome. And it was pretty great because there was only so much, like you can look at rumors, you have a whole chart of rumors, and as the GM, there are some things you can kind of cherry pick out, but generally you don't know where they're going to go, what kind of jobs they're going to get. And luckily, even though Andrea, her character, blew her side job, and so all she did was get fired.
It was a very exciting
They're already
session.
broke and penniless, so
yeah. I know.
We should probably mention that it's powered by the Apocalypse. It's by John Harper. It's very famously like on 2 pages or something?
4 pages.
4 pages.
Yeah.
4 pages, yeah.
It'll feel like 2.
Yeah. Well, one whole page I think is just the character sheet, right?
Yeah.
So although some of the rules are only on the character sheet. Yeah. I've always loved it, and kind of like John's World of Dungeons, it's one one of those games that I love to kind of fiddle with and play with. And that last time we ran it on Saturday Morning Cartoons was the first time I'd really emphasized the in-between part, like the in-between the train, rides. Rich, you'll probably, agree it's a lot of like improving. Like you have to kind of be ready to go on the fly because there's not much there. That's actually one of the reasons why I'm really looking forward to Blades in the Dark. One of the reasons, it may be the only reason, but it's a major reason I'm looking forward to Blades in the Dark.
Is what, more material for Ghostlines games? Is that what you're...
Yeah. Well, yeah, like more setting material. Yeah, because
Ghostlines is like a prequel, right? Kind of.
Yeah.
I think they're contemporaneous, aren't they?
I think there are mention of line bowls in Blades in the Dark. If I remember correctly.
There are. You can be a line bowl.
Yeah. All of it's a prequel for Lady Blackbird, right? Lady Blackbird comes much, much later after Blades and all that stuff. I'm not as interested in Blades mechanically as much as I kind of was when I first backed it, but I still am like really anxious and excited about like all the setting material, because even just the quick start has a lot of really, really cool stuff, and that I think is totally going to make that Kickstarter worth having backed. But yeah, because I do like that part of Ghostlines. I'm glad you guys did that. I think that's pretty fucking cool.
It's one of those things. I'm surprised we haven't seen more fan-generated material for Ghostlines, more people doing that. Sherry and I, it's actually on my big projects list, is we worked on different kinds of trains that you might have on different lines and different like station stopover points and events and things. And I would love to see more of that kind of thing, that people who want to go run Ghostlines have like some nice random tables that are additional to work with and some pieces they can drop in, because it's such a neat setting.
Yeah.
And the setting is so cool.
November's Codex is called Ectoplasm.
Ooh.
And boy, that seems like a good place to put something like that.
Hint.
I will make a note of that.
If somebody wants to whip up some charts, whip up some tables for Ghostlines, I'll put them in there.
Just so you know, Miguel Angel, or it could be Angel, I'm not sure. I don't know him. He just posted to the 1.7 design community on Google+. He put up some really cool things along the lines of what you're talking about.
Oh, good.
Oh, cool. Awesome.
And he made pictures, and it's really cute. They're cool.
You should put a link to that in the show notes.
I think we should.
Someone make a note for me.
Okay.
Awesome. Andrea, what do you think about like the fact that this is something that I thought was really interesting the last time we played Ghostlines? What do you think about the fact that Ghostlines has an emphasis on like desperation and poverty? Like, did that affect like how you played it or anything? Or because it really like it's a game all about like you're gonna die destitute if you don't do these things, right?
Were you here when I explained my game world?
That's your default setting.
That's right.
I personally really love settings like that. It's that struggle in the hopes you're actually going to make something of yourself.
Yeah.
And it's obviously, like, we don't exist in the same sphere as the bulls do. We don't have to go on trains and fight ghosts. But in a lot of ways, it kind of parallels how we as people feel. Like I'm a business major, right? Someday I would love to become like a CEO who makes like $500,000 and I can just golf in my office all day. Like that, that would be amazing. So it's a much more fantastic parallel for kind of that amazing dream we all have.
Yeah. I sometimes when I play Ghostlines, people complain about how slow the advancement is, because it is really quite slow.
Oh yeah.
And I think that's the point, Like I think it's meant to be like they're poor. They're going to be poor for a long time. It's really, really hard to not be poor, But I don't know. I might be reading too much into it. Ghostlines is pretty cool. Andrea, anything else?
I was going to mention, like, if you look at the rules for the first time, they are really intimidating because they're all squished together and there's not a lot there, and you're like, I don't understand what this game is, much less how to play it.
It's a little hard to navigate, I find.
Yeah.
I have this issue. I've played it 100 times, and I still find myself like fiddling around for like a little tiny rule every now and then.
Yeah.
But
the rules have come off differently the 4 times I've played it.
Yeah.
Each time.
Yeah.
That said, the moves are really comprehensive. Like this is built to do stuff on a train fighting ghosts.
Yeah.
And they did not fight any ghosts. They ran around in the city, and all of the moves ported over very, very well.
Still works. Yeah.
And they weren't World of Dungeons, which is just 7 to 9. GM gives you a hard choice. 10 plus. You had to pick from a list on all of them, which I love.
Right.
So.
Yeah. Yes, as established. Awesome. Cool. I'm sorry, Andrew. We just all jumped in there. Was there anything else you wanted to say?
No, I'm glad you did. I like actually talking about the games. I mean, with other people, not just talking by myself.
Yeah.
I do enough of that at home without anyone actually to talk to. So
let's proceed apace. I have continued with Tremulus. I talked about Tremulus a couple weeks ago. That is a Powered by the Apocalypse Lovecraftian mystery game by Sean Preston. I know a few people expressed some disbelief or some surprise that I had a good time with it, that I liked it. But the second session was even better than the first session, if I'm being honest. Like, it was a really, really good, fun session. We had a great time with it. My whole conversation with Tremulus here is going to have some caveats. But first, I want to say about Tremulus, and I'm really glad I got it to the table, because I think it's really easy to make a judgment about a game or about the way something will work in a game. And until you actually do it in play, you don't have a good sense for what the thing is trying to do. At least if you play the game and you try this mechanic out and it doesn't work out for you, that you at least have like tested your theory, right? So last time I mentioned that this idea of like GMs getting holds they can spend in the future to make hard moves was a thing that I thought was a little off at first, but I liked it when I actually did it. That holds true through the second session. I really, really still quite enjoy that aspect of the game. Another thing that came up in this session that I was initially, like when I read the rules, I was like, this seems really stupid. Like, this is not good, is the poke around move. So if you'll recall, the poke around move, you roll to search. It's like the search move. You're searching for things. You roll, and then you can keep rolling. Okay, like if you find a thing, and then if you want, you can keep going until you get a miss or until something else happens and the GM says you can't do it anymore. My initial thinking about that move was, why not just be like Discern Realities, where you roll once and then you get some hold and you can spend it to find some stuff, right? That just seems so much more elegant. Here's the thing. With the poke around move, you roll it, you find your thing, and then you have to make a decision as a player whether you want to try to do it again. But if you do it again, you make the roll at a -1 from what you previously made it at. Now, where does that -1 come from? I don't know. Like, fictionally, it's unclear. Like, why is it suddenly harder to search just because you searched once, right? That's unclear. But I will say, in play, it created a couple of really nice moments at the table. It came up a couple times, and in both cases, I could see the players making a decision. Like, oh man, do I want to push my luck here and do it again? Okay, all right, yeah, I'll do it, and they roll again, right? That was fun. Like, that was really enjoyable. And I think, I had done, if I say so myself, a pretty good job of like building the tension up of the mystery, right? And so they know that like the situation is really, really pregnant with like sort of danger and darkness. And so if they keep pressing their luck, they're going to kind of trigger some of that, right? And so they had like a decision to make. Like, do I keep searching around trying to find another clue, or do I stop, It's not typical Powered by the Apocalypse play by any means. It's definitely like kind of an odd outcome, but it was fun. And that's one of those things where the more I've played this game, the more I'm starting to see what the designer's intentions were with some of the moves, even if they aren't strictly honoring the intentions of Apocalypse World, right? Like, even if they're not that, they're still fun, and we're still having a good time with our story. And so I don't know how I feel about it. Ultimately, I think a big part of the reason why we're having a great time with this game is because we have a lot of good players, and I'm particularly skillful at running a mystery game, and so I'm able to make it work, But I don't know. But I feel like there's something there with Tremulus too, because Tremulus has done a few things where I've been like, okay, I see what's going on here. And it's, I kind of grab it and kind of run with it. So I wanted to kind of throw that out there. But here's something else that kind of a side conversation, if you guys will indulge me for a minute. So a while back, Rich, you and I and several other people got a chance to play the Black Hack. And we talked about it briefly on the show.
Right.
I considered that to be a disaster of a session. I really did. I felt uncomfortable with my GMing. I thought the story was shitty, and I just wasn't happy with it. Like, I just thought it was really, really bad. I just was really, really unhappy with how I GM'd the game. And I've been thinking about it a lot. That session of the Black Hack has been really, really like just kind of stuck in the back of my mind ever since we did it. And I think where my hang up was when we kind of talked about this is I like for all of the tools to be laid out in front of me in the rules, right?
Sure.
I like all the tools to be laid out so I know what I can grab and I don't feel like I'm cheating anybody. That's just how I've become accustomed to playing, and the Black Hack is so pared down that, you know, it goes back to that whole OSR thing, like rulings, not rules, right?
Right.
And I've been thinking about that a lot. And so I've come to this conclusion. If I had just run the Black Hack using the same, like, principles and techniques, I guess, that I use in Apocalypse World or PBTA games or even other story games, you know, it's even if it's not like mechanized in the game, I can still kind of use some of those basic like play techniques to create like a good experience at the table, right? And I had like a flash of insight. I'm like, well, that's what rulings not rules is, right? Like that's what that is. You know, it's like trusting your judgment and trusting your built up sort of like reservoir of knowledge about running a game at the table and using that knowledge to have fun, even if it's not within the confines of the rules. So I've been trying to incorporate a little bit of this into my gaming. So, sorry, did you want to say something, Lowell?
I think that I like the transition there.
Yeah. So I've been trying to incorporate some of that into my gaming. So in World of Dungeons, which I'm running right now, I was unhappy after the first session. It was a good session, but I was unhappy with the fact that there wasn't much like character interaction. That's because World of Dungeons doesn't have anything like that. There are no bonds or anything like that. And so I was like, well, let's just do flags. Let's just put flags in there. And it was great. It worked great. Like, it totally solved that problem. And we ended up having a very, very rich, character-driven World of Dungeons in the next couple sessions. So that was great. And now getting back to Tremulus. So I have 4 sessions of Tremulus, really just 3. We had to cancel one because we had a bunch of issues come up on the second session. But we did what was supposed to be the third session. We did that one. I've got a fairly limited amount of sessions to get this mystery done and to show off the game. And the rules were like, okay, you advance at the conclusion of a mystery or just whenever the GM feels like it, right? It was just total GM fiat.
Right.
And Black Hack had a similar thing. And I was like, oh, God. But then I was like, nope, I'm going to do rulings, not rules. And I'm going to do what I know works. And so I just basically lifted the Sprawls advancement, where you have like specific fictional triggers, in this case during the mystery. I kind of laid out some nice fictional triggers, and whenever they hit them, they got to advance, and it worked like a charm. It was really good, and the players were excited about it because they got to see how advancement worked, and I think it really added things. So that was my caveat on Tremulus. Like, I'm not exactly playing rules as written, and I'm probably really, really heavily relying on just like what I kind of fundamentally understand about running a good mystery game. So your mileage may vary on Tremulus is what I'm saying, listeners. Anyway, what do you guys think about that?
I love that a poke around move, what you mentioned with that, because I love push your luck mechanics at the table for the players. I absolutely adore that. Mutant Year Zero is entirely built on that. The card-driven game that we run at our homebrew is built on that, and it's built on me pushing you. Oh, you did okay. Maybe you want to do better, because you don't look awesome. Maybe you want to look awesome. Maybe you want to push your luck.
Nice.
And using their ego against them. And actually, you mentioned the sprawl. I think the sprawl, that legwork phase, is entirely push your luck. How much do we push forward on this? We want more information. It's going to cost us in the long run.
Right, yeah.
I love those bits. So that sounds really cool to me.
I have a few thoughts. First one is, Jason, you've expressed how impressed you are with Andrea's game. It's the Miners game where you guys are always doing kind of, let's do this wacky new game and we'll try it and we'll kind of drift it and shift it. That is really from trust in rulings, not rules, wouldn't you say, Andrea? I mean, you guys have enough faith as a group in each other that you're just going to fiddle around with it until you make that game suit what you want out of it.
Exactly.
So I think that's a benefit of that, maybe a group that feels confident in each other, or when you've played enough games to where you're like, well, this is a little bit like that, I'm going to do that thing. I'm all about rules as written to start off, but your call of, hey, I'm going to tweak Tremulus in this way, I think that's, once you've got 1 or 2 sessions going, I think it's cool. Here's the deal. Sean Preston is not going to come to your house and say a word to you. He's got your money, and that's all he gets. That's all he gets.
This sort of like move from rules as written has really been has really been something that I've been like kind of gradually like making this transition, because when I first came back to role-playing games, like I said, I was coming from board games, and in board games you must play rules as written, right? Like you can't deviate from the rules. And so I had that mindset of like, if I have to tweak your game to make it work for me, then your game is broken. Like that was my mindset, right? And I've really moved away from that, and I think that session of the Black Hack that I felt so bad about and so uncomfortable about really like put a bright line in my mind for me. It was like, at a certain point, you must take responsibility for everybody's, like, for the table's fun. Like, you are the person who organized this, and you have to take a certain degree of responsibility to make sure this game works, and then they obviously have a responsibility to play in good spirit, but you have to get the train going, like that's kind of your responsibility. And so like you can't have these hang-ups because you don't feel like there's enough there to work with. So yeah, that's anyway, I just want to throw that out there and see what you guys thought. Yeah, and I think maybe some of it is from Andrea too. Like I like Andrea's like you guys' wacky stuff you guys do that you've been talking about on the cast. I'm just like, what? That's so crazy. What? That's good. Cool. I don't have anything else to say about it though, so why don't we go ahead and go on to Giving Me Life. Hey, it's Giving Me Life. Rich, what's Giving You Life?
What is Giving Me Life is this show that I'm sure a number of people will say, oh, yeah, I knew about that a while back, because the show came out like 2012, 2013, so a little on the older side. It was a short order for the first season, second season. It was around 19 episodes, so you're talking like 20-some episodes, and it's called Don't Trust the Bee in Apartment 23.
I vaguely remember this, yeah.
First of all, the bee is played by Kristen Ritter. So if you want to see Jessica Jones in a comedic role, but not that far different from Jessica Jones, you could. It's neat. It's really neat. She's a pretty crazy character. The idea behind it is set in New York, and Kristen Ritter's character, Chloe, she has an apartment, and she doesn't want to be responsible and is relatively heartless at the beginning. So what she'll do is convince someone to be her roommate, get them to pay first and last month's rent, then drive them crazy until they move out, and then move on to the next potential roommate. That's what she did until she runs into June, who is there and loses her job and can't go back home to the Midwest where she's from. So that becomes her kind of semi-permanent roommate. And there's always that tension between the two of them. A little bit of the odd couple thing going on as you have the bright and shiny June, and then Chloe, the dark character, who's also very sharp, acerbic wit and the like. And so that you're like, okay, that's predictable. Here's the other thing. Chloe, Kristen Ritter's character, her best friend is James Vanderbeek.
Oh, okay. There's a blast from the past.
Playing James Vanderbeek. Like, they have created him as if he is the actor who still lives in New York, still does stuff. And the humor that they get out of that, James Vanderbeek lampooning himself and Dawson's Creek, and how he's just kind of done Dawson's, and that's all people know him for. Hilarious. Really, really funny. The style of comedy is similar to It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, except that it never takes the characters to such a radical extreme that they don't seem realistic. They're just, like, to me, It's Always Sunny, it lost me.
They're cartoon characters.
Exactly, yeah. They're cartoon characters. Like, it's always going to hit the reset button, right? It's like the Warner Brothers, and the Sister Dot. Like, they're going to reset. The characters actually grow, evolve, and change. There are moments and hints of them actually caring about each other a little bit, and the dark humor is tempered so that it's not just what's the terrible black comedy thing that would be the most obvious here. It's pretty great. I'm really enjoying it. I haven't made it through the first season yet, but I like it.
Cool.
It's giving me life.
Andrea, what's giving you life?
I realized today that it's been 360 days since our last Oktoberfest. Like, I don't drink.
Okay.
I don't have children, so, like, the beer tent is out, the parade is out, the festival's out. But what is not out is the German food. It's so good. Our local American Legion, they bring in, like, some little old ladies and little old men, and they just, like, make homemade German food, and it's amazing.
Nice.
We went there last year, and we walked in, and we're like, okay, there's, like, a whole bunch of different kinds of schnitzel. And then I'm like, okay, well, what do I get with this? And they're like, oh, you can have all this. And I'm like, there's like 8 different sides. Are you sure? And they're like, yeah, just take what you want. And I'm like, okay. And that was like, there was like 4 meals worth of food for $8. It was so incredible, and I'm really excited. I'm going to go there for lunch. I'm going to go there for dinner. I'm going to eat all the food.
Awesome.
That's
awesome.
great.
Lowell, what's giving you life?
So I'm kind of a history buff. I really love history books, and I do a lot of stuff now listening to history audiobooks. I do that in the car, so things take a long time because I can't listen to voices while I work. But I'm about 90% of the way through this 52-hour audiobook called Postwar, and it's by Tony Jute. It's a history of Europe from 1945 to the present day, and it is fascinating. You know, I'm past the period of the fall of the wall and the breakup of the Soviet Union, which is all that period that I remember growing up from middle school, high school, and college, and getting a lot more of the behind-the-scene details about that. It's a very cool pulling back of the curtain, both literal and figurative there. And, boy, it's super neat. I love it when I get a history book that kind of changes my perspective on things. And this one certainly does.
Sweet. The thing giving me life this week is I just got back the final layout version of the 2nd issue of Codex, our little RPG zine. It's called Codex Chrome, and it's pretty great. My layout guy, Ollie, he's fantastic. He's like really, really good, and it was just kind of like happenstance that we kind of came together, but I'm super happy it happened. He's just really easy to work with. He does great work. Anyway, Codex Chrome. It's going to be available as part of the Patreon. The Patreon hasn't launched as of the day of this recording. It should have launched by the time it releases, though. I don't know for sure. I think it will be. So if you are listening to this and you're like, oh man, I want to get Codex Chrome, I hope the Patreon has launched. We'll find out. If it'll be launching shortly after this episode comes out, if it's not already launched by then. So, but anyway, Codex Chrome is going to be sweet. You're going to love it. It's got a whole big, like, starter thing for the sprawl, which is pretty badass. It's got a bunch of like science fantasy dungeon world stuff. It's got the little miscellany, like 8 or 9 pieces of art. It's pretty sweet. So yeah, pretty awesome. And that great layout, which I'm calling a 1980s dream because that's what it looks like. So, and that's it. Listeners, if you want to get in touch with us, I recommend you go to our website, www.gauntlet-rpg.com. We have links to all of our other podcasts, as well as our meetups and G+ community there. We're also on Twitter at Gauntlet RPG. Andrea, where can we find you?
Ivory Thorns on Google+.
Lol.
Primarily at my blog at Age of Ravens.
Rich.
You can find me on the Twitter at ORKLORD.
Rich. I'll go in reverse order. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Lol, thanks so much.
Why, thank you.
Sorry, I can't. Every time, lol, Jesus Christ. Andrea, thank you so much.
Thank you.
You know what? I think Lowell's going to set a precedent where you all have to do funny voices whenever I individually thank you from now on. So
I can't do a funny voice right now. I'm sorry.
I thought you were doing a funny voice the whole episode.
Oh
no. No, you're so mean.
Yes.
Don't make me growl at you again.
Yeah, that's kind of neat. Listeners, thank you so much for listening. That's our show. So Rich and I, and a few other people.
Wait, sorry, you're roboting and
lost you completely.
Yeah,
sorry.
All right, well, let me just join again. Hold on.
Okay.
So this is the point where we do some stuff that I'm going to edit out. So Andrea, can you sing for us?
Wah, wah.